All right, joining us now. He's from the Tape Don't Lie podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at BDWilliams18. I asked him where he's doing his writing now, and he said, I have just received an offer that I'm going to get. I imagine you're just making sure the check's in the mail. There's enough commas and zeros on there to make sure they got you. So we'll tease it now. You can follow him on Twitter and find out where he's going to land later. BD Williams, down on the show. How you doing, BD?
Appreciate you guys having me on. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Of course.
Welcome,
yeah.
man.
Like we were telling you, we read comments and stuff on YouTube and everywhere else, and they said, you got to get you guys on for the Tape Don't Lie. And so I said, don't got to twist my arm. So here we are. So the big news this week, a lot of Derek Carr conversation, right? Did the interview with Chris Collinsworth, the conversation from 2 weeks ago that Tom Brady was like, that motherfucker, like that was the guy that was the team that didn't let me, etc. Where do you put Derek Carr? This is like a very general question, so you can put it however you want. But like when you think of Derek Carr, like what first comes to your mind? Like franchise quarterback, he's got to go, hot and cold. Like what do you think of Derek Carr as a writer for Raider Nation?
Yeah, I am impressed with certain things that Derek Carr does. I think obviously there's room for improvement. He's not infallible. Even the best quarterbacks have room for improvement. Certainly he's not like an all-time great or anything like that. But, you could do a lot worse than having a Derek Carr as your quarterback in the NFL. And the way I look at it is there's 32 NFL teams. There are not 32 starting caliber NFL quarterbacks in the world. Okay, so when you're a team that does have a starting caliber NFL quarterback, that's usually a good thing, a really good thing for your franchise. And I think that he played pretty well last year. I think he had his best year as a pro last year. So hopefully he can keep on building on that. And, we see some of the areas where, Raiders fans get a little upset about him not extending plays, some ball security issues that, make them kind of upset. But hopefully we can see an improvement there. But, for the most part, I'm a Derek Carr fan.
See, that hurts Soto's feelings because he hates Derek Carr, wants him gone, wants his kids to starve, wants his wife to cry.
RJ pushes this narrative.
Despises QB1. So why do you think that is? Because I'm with you. Like he's statistically he had his best season last season, better than 2016. I don't remember anyone saying Derek Carr had to leave after that 2016 season. Why? Because the defense wasn't dog shit. And so they won 12 games and went to the playoffs, right? Is it as simple like the Derek Carr hate? Is it as simple as the team doesn't win and so it's just on the quarterback? Is it that simple?
I understand why fans are frustrated when there's constant losing seasons or not making the playoffs, especially when the quarterback and the head coach look like they're here to stay for the long run. So 100% understand why Raiders fans are frustrated. Winning will cure all. So we'll see if that happens.
I just want to make something clear here, okay?
Okay.
RJ pushes this shit every single episode. He drops it, and the people are like jumping on it, like, "Oh, you hate Carr."
You made it abundantly clear.
I don't hate Derek Carr. Okay,
yes, you do.
I actually wrote it down. Just the next time that he freaking tries to pull this shit, here's my take on Derek Carr. Derek Carr is a great game manager. He takes command of a huddle and runs an offense pre-snap as good as anyone in the league. Okay, a steep regression against pressure. His risk averseness hurts in the red zone and when pocket is not clean. I feel he has not mentally recovered from his broken ankle when he panics to check down under pressure when bigger plays are open. BD, what say you to that?
Sounds like you hate him.
These are all valid criticisms, and they're definitely criticisms that we've seen before from him. There's definitely, I'm a big football junkie. I would watch Jon Gruden when he would do his QB films, rooms or, QB camps with all these guys coming out, Marcus Mariota and Andrew Luck, like over the years. And I remember there was like a phrase that he would constantly say to his quarterbacks, right? When he'd be going over film with them and over like throwing an interception, he's like, "What about this guy down here in the flat?" Right? That's the only play there. Mm-hmm. That's the only play to make. And we've seen Derek Carr go from being a guy who pushed the ball vertically under Musgrave, in 2016, to a guy who checks the ball down now under a different coach. And I do think a lot of the checkdowns is because that's what Gruden wants. Gruden wants to stay on schedule. He'd rather have a check down for 3 yards than putting the ball in danger or an incompletion. So I really do think that this is an emphasis that Gruden makes with the checkdowns, for sure. And then, as far as, breaking the ankle, having, issues and being antsy in the pocket, things like that. He can improve his pocket presence, especially when there's someone around him and he needs to secure the football, There are times, though, where we've seen him step up in the pocket, throw strikes down the field. In 2020, think about the Jets game. At the very end, he had to climb all the way up through the pocket. There was a lot of pressure on him, and he kept his demeanor and threw a game-winning touchdown. So we see glimpses. We just want to see, as Raiders fans, and I completely understand why Raiders fans want to see it be more consistent and not just have glimpses of it.
Well, one thing about that Jets game, though, is there was no other play. Like, he had to do that. There was no choice in that matter. He couldn't check down. You throw it deep or you lose the
gloves
game.
are off. You didn't have Gruden holding him back. That's what I'm wondering is, like,
is he overcoached?
Yeah, is Jon Gruden more holding back Derek Carr than help? Because like you said, he played lights out last season, but the things that we loved about him in 2016 under Musgrave, he's not really doing as consistently now. So even though, like, Gruden's got this reputation, quarterback whisperer, great offensive mind, which he is, great play caller, which he is he just handcuffing his quarterback and wasting his best years on dink and dunks?
Yeah, I think this is the issue that a lot of, like, scheme guru, offensive gurus have.
Quote unquote.
Regardless if we're putting Gruden in this category, the Shanahans, the Sean McVays, right? They don't want quarterbacks who improvise. They don't want quarterbacks who go off schedule. They want quarterbacks to execute their play call, right? And you see that kind of bite some of these guys in the foot at times. You look at, Kyle Shanahan's record in big games, right? You look at Sean McVay couldn't get over the hump with Jared Goff, right? They value quarterbacks who are in rhythm, passers, game managers. That's who they want. And I think that in that category of quarterbacks, Derek Carr is, just as good, or close to as good as any of the game manager quarterbacks in the NFL. That's who he is. And, we'll see if there are going to be times where Derek Carr needs to overcome coaching a little bit, like you're saying, Soto. Yeah. But yeah, I think that certainly is an element with Jon Gruden. Offense is overcoaching for sure. He asks a lot from guys.
How would you grade this? Go ahead, Soto.
Yeah, one thing in relation to that, Derek Carr's average ADOT, the average depth of target under pressure, he was 18th in the league. So he's captain check down under pressure specifically. And you see the top five. What was the top five? It was like Brady, Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Watson. It's like those were like those guys were the Mahomes. There was like the top five. It's like under pressure, these guys make you pay, right? And it's I'm not saying I think that Derek Carr is very talented. I think he has great arm talent. I think he throws a nice, pretty deep ball.
But you want him to die.
You see this? You see what I'm working with, dude? You see what I'm working with?
I can read your mind, Soto. Your lips are doing this, but I can read your mind. And I know what you're thinking.
I have put you underneath Florio now. Florio is above you now. RJ.
I didn't think that was possible. We did a whole Mike Florio bashing session before
you ask a question, RJ. Just shit over my question. Go ahead.
Well, just responding to Soto. I mean, you can't throw deep if the guys aren't running deep, right? For Derek Carr. And in a Jon Gruden offense, when wide receivers, this is a responsibility for them in the offense. When they see a blitz coming, they run what's called a side adjustment, okay, where they're going to go replace where that blitzer came from, okay? Usually it's going to be a drag route, a slant route, maybe an out route. They're going to be shallow routes, okay? When they see blitz, it's called a side adjustment. Mm-hmm. Now, when you look at the Chiefs, when you look at Bruce Arians' offense under Tom Brady, these are more vertically, oriented offenses where they have targets running deep, right? So when there is pressure, that's where the ball is going to go because, oftentimes you'll see Patrick Mahomes and he refuses to check it down. And that's why he lost to the Raiders in week 5 because the checkdowns were open and he refused to take those. Okay. So there's competing, schools of thought here. Certainly in the Raiders offense, guys are going shallow more often than they're going vertical. So that's where Derek Carr is going to throw the ball because that's where the guys are.
Do you think that's more of like Gruden sticking to a system and not wanting to change, or Gruden not really having a lot of confidence in his wide receiver core?
I mean, yeah, this is Gruden's system. It's here to stay. It's not going to all of a sudden turn into an air raid, 4 verticals, every other play type of system. It just won't. Don't bank on that, Raider Nation. He wants a ball control, dink and dunk, check down, game managing offense. He wants to be on the field for 14, 15 plays. That's a successful drive for Jon Gruden. A successful drive for like the Andy Reid's is a 3-play drive that was, with an explosive
80
play.
yards.
And it only takes 2 minutes off the clock. Jon Gruden wants to take 10 minutes off the clock when he's out there on offense, right?
God forbid the opposing offense gets the ball and our fucking defense has to go out there with its pants down.
Exactly. So that's the way that's going to be. Unless this defense all of a sudden becomes just like a top 10 defense in the NFL, you're not going to see the offense taking a bunch of chances.
Well, let's talk about the defense because, you hear like we reassess the Raiders and their offseason and their personnel and all the changes. It's like, Derek Carr, what's it going to be? What kind of, 2 running backs with Drake and Jacob? What's it going to look like? All that is so minor. If Gus Bradley can't get the defense playing semi-coherently, nothing else matters. Like, you're just not going to win in the NFL with a defense that ranks like 32nd, like just absolutely atrocious. So, like, we talk so much about, like, all right, can Corey Littleton get his act together? Where Jonathan Abram figure things out? Where Yannick Ngakoue make a giant difference? It's like none of these. I don't feel like any of these individual players are really all that crucial. It's can Gus Bradley get that crew as a whole to succeed? Like that's kind of how I look at the whole defense. So when you look at the defense next season, BD, like, is there a ceiling you expect? Are you expecting something drastic? Are you expecting certain players to improve or get worse? Are you with me on Gus Bradley? Like, kind of how do you foresee this defense next season with what you know so far?
Yeah, I'd say that we're going to be in for at least a slightly pleasant surprise with the defense. The biggest difference between Paul Guenther and Gus Bradley is Paul Guenther had a huge volume in his defensive game plan. He wanted to be able to have any call at his fingertips, any coverage at his fingertips, and what happened was guys weren't able to actually practice what was being called in the game.
You heard Will Compton say on his podcast, they'd have 25, 30 plays on just third downs every week.
And another issue with that, also with the amount of installation time that takes in offense and practice, now you can't focus on your back pedal. You can't focus on your press technique as much, right? You can't focus on film study because you're trying to learn the playbook. This is going to be much more scaled down for Gus Bradley. And that what is going to result in you're going to see better fundamentals, better technique, better, anticipating what the offense is going to bring because you have more time now to learn the offense's plays because you're going to be in single high 75% of the game. You're only going to get so many looks, right? And I think that having a cohesive identity on defense is going to kind of dictate what the offense is going to send to you. Whereas before there was no identity, there was no cohesiveness. You could get anything on any play, and defense often was not ready.
How would you grade this offseason so far? Because the Raiders and most of the media have been bashed pretty hard with their offseason, and they dismantled their O-line. What are they doing signing such an expensive backup running back? Their draft sucked, etc. Do you feel like this offseason has been as bad as it's kind of led on, or do you see some positives?
Yeah, I think it's been kind of tough to talk about with a lot of Raiders fans because they're so passionate, and a lot of times they're not allowing to objective analysis. But Rodney Hudson has been on the decline, especially in the run game, for several seasons now. There was quite a few games where the Raiders could not get any traction up front, and he was getting his butt whooped as a run blocker. Okay, he's always been a great pass protector, but as a run blocker, he has a tough time moving the better defensive tackles, especially like guys like Quinnen Williams dominated him. Okay,
Whooped him,
right? So, I understand why Raiders fans are upset. Gabe Jackson as well missed a lot of blocks in the run game. Jon Gruden, again, we go back to it. He wants to be a ball control oriented offense. When you got a musical chairs of offensive line, you got no cohesiveness, so you can't run a zone scheme and that's what they want to do. They want to run a zone scheme. The zone scheme means everyone has to be on the same page, and you have so many moving parts. They're just scrapping the whole thing, and they're trying to start fresh from the beginning, hopefully getting guys that are just there and available each and every week. It's really tough to win in the NFL when you have so many offensive line injuries. So I think that's what they're hoping on. They're just hoping on, a more stable core of guys to run the offense.
Younger guys that don't get hurt as much, right?
Younger guys that don't get hurt as much, but there's going to be hiccups. There's going to be bumps in the road. It is what it is. But if you go back and you actually look at the film, okay, you look at how often Gabe Jackson missed an assignment or got beat. If you look at how often Rodney Hudson on zone schemes would get pushed into the backfield and make or put Josh Jacobs into a bad situation.
How many times Trent Brown was on the sideline in street clothes eating fruit roll-ups?
Yeah, so there were bumps in the road last year too. So I mean it had to be done. I would say that the departure that I'm most discouraged about is Nelson Agholor not coming back. I went on another podcast and I said I bet he'd make like $13 million a year just looking at what the contracts are in the NFL, and he went and made $13 million a year, so I knew it was going to be too expensive for the Raiders to keep. He had such an instant chemistry with Derek Carr, and I was really looking forward to like seeing what that would look like with an off season. Unfortunately, we're not going to see what that turns out to be, but I do think a guy like Kenyan Drake is a better gap scheme runner than Josh Jacobs, and has a lot of juice. He was like the third fastest ball carrier in the NFL last year. Where the areas where Josh Jacobs struggles in a little bit, Kenyan Drake can go and do those things really well.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that I was hearing a lot of why the Raiders had a bad offseason is, you paid this much for a backup running back. And it's like, you can't really think of Drake as a backup running back because he's going to have a lot of packages just for him. He's not going to run a lot of Jacob stuff. They're going to run similar stuff back and forth, but he's going to have packages just for him. So he's his own specific weapon. He's not, quote unquote, just a backup running back.
Yeah, and especially, Josh Jacobs has failed to get through 16 games in 2 seasons right now. You want him to be healthy, okay, because he's, almost as good of a zone runner in the NFL as there is, okay, top 5 zone scheme running back in the NFL. But at the same time, you want him to be healthy. So maybe he scales back some of his carries and Kenyan Drake can get more touches and they can even it out a little bit like that. But, you are only as good as your depth in the NFL, okay? And someone like Kenyan Drake, I think he was misused in Arizona. If they put him in fun situations, just the threat of Kenyan Drake splitting out wide, Kenyan Drake getting a direct snap, even if they do it like once or twice a game, it's something that the opposing defense now has to focus and game plan for and practice against. Plays that might only happen like 2 or 3 times a game, right? That's invaluable. So I do think Kenyan Drake is a great signing. I don't believe in running backs don't matter and all that stuff. I like Kenyan Drake the player, and I think he adds a explosive dynamic element to this offense for sure.
And depth, it's obviously always good and invaluable, but specifically for the Raiders, when back-to-back seasons have fallen apart late in seasons as guys get hurt, get on injury reserve, and fall off. Like, it's been a very much more noticeable of an issue for the Raiders because of how their seasons have fallen apart and guys just haven't been able to be available. So it's like, yeah, Jacobs is not there. Kenyan Drake's great. Every single starting wide receiver position, I'm really confident in who's ever backing him up, right? Like whether it's Edwards or Brown or if Ruggs finally gets his act together, like there's Snead's backup for Renfro. Like there's quality depth at every single position at offense now. and I don't know if you saw it, but Bill Barnwell, one of Bill Barnwell's podcast, ESPN, he had this thing where he counted like how many starting offensive line squads never missed a snap. Like no one got hurt. Everyone played all 16 games, started all 16 games, all 5 positions. He said it only happened 10 times in the last like 15 years. And like 8 of them went to the Super Bowl. Like it's that huge. So instead of dumping all this money on an offensive line of 30-something-year-olds are going to get hurt, cheaper dudes who have experience, like that's one of the benefits. And Derek Carr said on the Collinsworth podcast, like one of the benefits of having a bunch of injuries on the line last season is all these backups got reps. Like Andre, all these guys got some reps. So I'm with you. Like that depth is so important, and like that's one of the critical errors that the roster of the Raiders has had for a while. It's just no depth, which on every part of the field there's depth now. Like even though our DBs still suck, like you've got legit 4 starting corners, legit 4 starting safeties. Like I think that's outside of the defense improving. That's the biggest improvement I can say this offseason, the biggest positive.
Yeah, I definitely think like the depth on defense is way better, miles better than it was before. I think that there's a lot of competition at key spots. Even look at middle linebacker Nicholas Morrow against Nick Kwiatkowski. That'll be a fun camp battle to monitor. You know, you got Malcolm Kuntz backing up Yannick Ngakoue. You know, all these 3 technique interior defensive linemen that they brought in working. You know, that's going to be a huge camp battle. So yeah, I do think that the depth at almost every position is just drastically improved over what it has been in the past.
So Jon Gruden's heading into his 4th season in his 2nd stint with the Raiders. Not a winning season yet, obviously no playoffs, but I like it's hard because you want to judge, like you judge anything in life by what you've done. What have you accomplished, right? Like that's how you judge them. It's very hard to gauge where they're going to go next. So obviously Jon Gruden, the last 3 seasons, you got to consider it a failure. But I do like the direction it's going. Like offense is getting better. I'm starting to see some cohesion in defense, a plan on defense. Special teams is doing fine. Like, how do you grade Jon Gruden in his first 3 seasons, and how do you think things are going to be going moving forward if he does all 10 seasons of his contract?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say I would give him like B-, C+. You know, we've seen the offense improve. So far, yeah. We've seen the offense improve. So on that aspect, you know, it's one of the most efficient offenses in the NFL last year. Despite all the injuries on the offensive line, they were still able to move the ball. They were, you know, they had like some of the best number of like drives number of plays in a drive and things like that. Obviously, the red zone was an issue. But that comes back to not being able to run the ball because you have a tattered offensive line. But he's the head coach, so he deserves blame for the defense, you know. So if his defense is, or if his offense is like A-, B+, the defense is like an F. It brings down the grade, and you know that was on him for hiring that staff and not recognizing soon enough that it was not working and that the approach was not working. So, hopefully he's corrected it. It's a little late in the game, and a lot of these players were brought in to be in a different scheme. And now, we're going to see who actually works in Gus Bradley's scheme and who doesn't. So it's probably not going to be, year one for Gus Bradley. It's going to be maybe year 2 or year 3 if they get that much time, where Gus Bradley can start picking his guys that he wants. But, he deserves the blame for the defense being so bad. He made all those hires. He did not fire anyone soon enough. So, yeah.
That's what I was saying. It's like, why bring him back for year 3? Why bring Gunther back for that third year? You saw that the defense regressed so much from the first to second year. And you saw what Will Compton said. You saw that or maybe he didn't see. Maybe he did it. He wasn't in the room enough, or he didn't talk with the guys enough to know that he's not teaching these guys anything. He's just throwing a bunch of schemes at them. He's not coaching up fundamentals. He's not making sure the defense looks, especially the secondary. RJ and I would always joke that even two guys like us who don't know what the fuck we're talking about, we can see that the DBs are looking at each other and they're chattering up until the snap.
Was it you? Like what?
Yeah,
what?
It's every time it's like they're talking up until the snap. It's like they're lost. They're completely lost. and there's too many wide open big plays. It's like, yeah, man, you let that shit happen from year 2 to year 3. Why bring him back for that 3rd year? It's you saw that it wasn't working.
Right. Yeah. My co-host on, the Tape Don't Lie film channel on YouTube, Marcus Johnson, he brought up a great point that Jon Gruden had never fired a coach before. So
I didn't realize that.
So I think that definitely played into his decision to bring Paul Guenther back. He was hoping against hope that we'd see an improvement there. But yeah, Paul Guenther's the first coach that he ever fired.
Wow.
Mid-season, no less.
So even you could survive on that coaching staff then.
Yeah, you know what?
Gruden just won't fire anyone.
Challenge accepted.
Who'd have thought Gruden was such a big old softy, right? Like hear how he just like berates his quarterbacks and like comes down on people, even though he's like a fun guy. He's like never like nothing's ever good enough. He just can't fire any coordinators.
I think he's just so focused on his own shit. He just doesn't even. He's not even like.
Yeah, doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah,
I don't think of defense. I've got 90,000 spider white bananas to put together. Like why would I care about this? All right, his name is BD Williams. Check him out on the Tape Don't Lie show on YouTube. He has a new writing home, which you're not going to know about until he says so. So just be patient. Follow him on Twitter as well at BD Williams 18. This is great, BD. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, BD.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. You guys are a blast. You got great energy. Appreciate it. Thanks, Raider Nation.